Welcome to the Smoke That Thunders Off Air. Today we have an amazing guest, a friend, a brother, someone that I've known for I think almost 3 years now. His name is Vin, and he is a classical musician. He is a master of the piano, and today we're at the shopping saloon where he just at an event. So this is gonna be an interview where we get to know the man behind the fingers. So I'll start with the first question. So when did you start playing the piano? When did you start? When did you place your first fingers on the white and black keys?
But I think placing my fingers, I think I had to be extremely young.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was 3 or 4, but
Oh, wow.
nothing happened at that point.
It was
but
just
I
like-
think, but I think in terms of learning, I think I started around about 6.5, 7 years old. Yeah.
And so you learn how to play the piano when you're what, 6.5 years old, 7. That's around the same age that I learned. But the difference between me and you is that you're actually pretty good at it and you stuck to it. And so one thing I know about playing the piano is if you can play the piano, you can basically learn any musical instrument because it's the hardest thing to learn. So do you play any other instruments or you only stuck to this beautiful beast?
I mean, I'd like to think, it's maybe one of the hardest instruments because there's just so many components to it. I come from a very artistic family at the end of the day. Even, my father plays the drums a bit, so my brother learned to play the drums. So I did pick up basic drumming. Of course, I can't do anything advanced on a drum kit, but I think because of the coordination of learning everything on the piano, not only the fingers, but our feet as well. Maybe just very basic drumming.
The easy 1, 2, 3, 4 drumming.
Yes, exactly.
That we learn in music class. So you can do a bit of drumming. So you start playing the piano, and usually when people learn the piano, they're learning pop songs. You're playing the easiest songs that people know and love. Did you start off as a pop pianist, as our term, or you?
Yeah, I mean it's more so, and I would say I don't know if pop is the right genre to talk about, but definitely with classic rock.
Okay,
Because
lovely.
and really more so than classical. My parents introduced us not only to classical music, but everything from the 70s and 80s. And to be honest, I was more influenced by that music when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
So classical music was not in my head at that time. It was not something inspiring for me at a young age, but classic rock, I would say.
That was your first.
Yes.
That was your first love, and so you go from classic rock to classical music.
Yes.
So when it comes to classical music or what we call ancient music, it's always the awakening. It's always something fancy or something complicated. So when did you get your awakening?
I think it had to be around the age of 13, 14.
Okay.
Because, of course, I started playing the piano at a younger age. However, it just didn't click. And to be very fair, my mom was the one who really tried to influence us with classical, such as ballet, taking us to shows, and it just didn't register for us, unfortunately. But I think around 13, 14, I would play some small works of maybe Beethoven, Mozart, very famous pieces like, a Mozart Turkish March, the Beethoven Moonlight Sonata. And then, of course, in that world, Chopin existed, right, in the Romantic period. And the last piece that I played this evening, the encore, the small A minor waltz,
the A minor,
that was actually the very first Chopin piece that I ever learned.
Really?
And I think it really propelled me to want to learn classical music more seriously.
And like we mentioned, obviously, the Romantic period with Beethoven, Mozart, and Chopin. Was it always Chopin initially, or it wasn't like Chopin was an afterthought? It was obviously you grew up in America, which probably we didn't mention earlier. Beethoven is probably the most popular. Like his pieces are probably the most popular in classic music.
Yeah, there are a few like very, very famous pieces, right? Even if we're not talking about just the piano itself, but like a Beethoven symphony.
Symphony,
yeah, especially the Fifth Symphony,
Yeah, the Fifth
right?
Symphony, yeah. That's what that everyone
Right.
knows.
Or if people want to play Mozart, it's usually this Turkish march, where you have a lot of fast things happening on the piano. And I would say there was a few composers, Chopin was a part of that world. I don't think it hit me at the very beginning, but as I said, when I played the A minor waltz, I just wanted to listen to more Chopin, and then I got to know preludes and etudes, and then of course you watch these pianists on YouTube playing these pieces, and you just think it's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, this is
and so you feel inspired to want to do the same.
To stretch yourself.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, like you're from America and you grew up in the South,
Yes,
famous
Louisiana.
It's like Louisiana, famous for its country music.
And of course, jazz.
And jazz, exactly. So what was your musical education like? Because you mentioned that obviously you're watching some from YouTube, but then I'm saying if you grew up in an American educational system, classical music, it's usually it's usually like extra lessons or private lessons.
It's extracurricular. It's not something that is forced upon you like in primary or secondary school. Of course, in the States, we were saying, elementary and middle school, right? And even high school for that matter. But, I think I was very fortunate, like, a lot of my friends at that time, arts were very important. So even if you decided not to do music itself, from visual arts to theater, our schools had these programs, and we were kind of immersed in arts programs. And, my parents, decided on certain schools because they offered certain arts classes. And of course, that being piano. So I had, the privilege, I was very lucky enough to take group piano lessons, where, yes, you can play classical music, and the teachers definitely introduce it, but not only. So that's where it balanced things out, because, for young children, maybe they don't want to play classical music.
Yeah.
You can play some pop, you can play some rock and roll if you want, or jazz, or blues, whatever it is. But I would say, Louisiana is just a very diverse culture. And I think, now looking back, my brother and I, we were both very lucky to grow up in such an environment, because we were just introduced to so much art.
And you could actually express yourself artistically. So one of the biggest things that people say about classical music players is you guys are musicians, but you're not artists. But you guys really create anything. You just recite and you play, which
we're just replicating.
Exactly,
right?
just replicating. It's copy and paste. But you mentioned that you come from a family of musicians. But amongst the musicians, because I know you also like create your own music, you also make your own compositions. You're also a composer, not just a musician. But who's the biggest artist in your family? Initially, you had mentioned your mom was the one who really drove you guys to classical music.
Yes, well, definitely for me. Like, of course, when it comes to my brother, it didn't affect him at the end. It didn't really influence him, but it did have an impact on me. Of course, in my family, my parents, and of course, my family who lives abroad as well, nobody really pursued music or art professionally, but singing has been very important. My parents are both very good visual artists, in terms of sketching, painting, as hobbies. And I think my brother and I, we definitely take those qualities from them.
Them,
And
all right.
yeah, I mean, my mom being an artist herself, a painter. My dad, of course, having a love for the drums as
Oh,
well.
yeah. But like drummers aren't artists, though. Yeah.
But it's a different art
Yeah,
form,
it's
right? It is different, and it's a different skill set as well.
Yeah.
I would say, really, they both influenced me equally.
Okay. And now we get to the older you, because you mentioned off camera that you've been playing the piano for 22 years.
Yeah, roughly.
It's hard for people to calculate how old you are. And you come to Poland. I remember you were like in your mid-20s, because I think we once talked about that. So why did you come to Poland?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question. Yeah.
Really, it's the music of Chopin at the end of the day. I had very good education back in Louisiana. My professors were wonderful. I did my bachelor's and master's there at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And but after that, in 2019, just maybe 4 or 5 months before pandemic hit, I moved here, and no, my heart just told me that I needed to be in the same environment where Chopin was born, where he initially started his education, and just to be surrounded by Chopin culture at the end of the day.
And you come to the country of Chopin. Well, in Poland it is the country of Chopin. Do you feel like you've changed as a musician now that you're in Poland?
100%. And in ways I never imagined. Of course, like this evening, I presented a few of my own original compositions. That was something I never did back in the US. As you mentioned, I mean, of course, classical musicians were known to just replicate works, right? We see what's on the page.
What's on the page, yeah.
And we try to do just justice to that, to be as perfect as possible. I would say, being here for 6 years, I really explored myself at the end. What else do I love? Of course, I do love performing Chopin's works and learning them. And that takes a certain amount of dedication in itself, but going through that process, I wanted to find my own colors, I started slowly improvising a little bit more, which again I was very rigid and even quite stubborn about that when I was back in the U.S. But slowly, I just that part of me started to open up a bit more, and I can say it's just been a beautiful process because I'm enjoying that side of myself as an artist. The composition side, and I feel like there's a need to not only showcase Chopin, but who I am as a musician, as an artist.
And we definitely got the opportunity to see that. But then probably my last question before we get to the composition is, I know with classical musicians, there's a piece that breaks them, that they take months and weeks working on. What's that one piece that broke you?
Oh gosh. All that to say, I mean, there's still, of course, a lot of Chopin to still be learned that I haven't played. I would say Chopin etudes. Though they're not long pieces, they last for about 2 minutes.
2 minutes
maximum, right? But for 2 consecutive minutes, the fingers are just, as we say, ballistic. On the keyboard. So I would say learning a certain amount of Chopin etudes, that for sure, that sort of, breaks you physically and maybe mentally at times.
And yeah, I can imagine how that whole process must be. And what would you say is your favorite? Because you said your first Chopin piece was the waltz that you played in
Yes.
A2. So what's your favorite Chopin piece? And would you mind playing it for us?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure. Well, I don't know if we have time to play the whole thing, but
Oh
I'll
no,
definitely
maybe
play a snippet
a
of it,
snippet,
of
maybe
course.
the opening.
Yes. As I always present, the Nocturne, Opus 48, number 1,
Okay.
in C minor. Yeah, it's just from the first time I listened to it, I just connected with it. It's of course it's one of the most common pieces, even during the competition, that many pianists play. It's just it has a darkness to it. It has a sense of fire and just so much involved. And yes, I would say the C minor Nocturne is probably my most favorite.
That's your favorite. Oh, so you can play it for,
Sure,
for the
I'll
audience.
just play the opening a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, just the opening. Fantastic. That was really, really, really good.
I could not stop in between that. I feel like I need to finish that entire that phrase. Yeah.
No, that was perfect. That was really nice. And now going to your own compositions. When does the musician become the artist?
I wish I had a good answer to that question. It's a funny thing. My time here, since I've been presenting concerts, and of course not only here at the Chopin Salon, and of course you have been there at the Methodist House, right, on Platz Bavicella. There's a point where you play a Chopin program, and you hear it from others, and you hear it from audience members that they see how connected you are as an artist to this music, to Chopin's music, and they are actually quite intrigued about your own music. And there was a point where, I guess I thought to myself that, wow, I've never delved into this world of composition, but I guess I could try.
Yeah.
So I would say, of course, there was a deeper inclination about 5 years ago. Even during pandemic time, I started playing with my own ideas. But I think more so even after that, it it came from others too, that, they're wanting to hear something even more personal, right? Not what you can emote with somebody else's music, but what I have to say, what ideas I have, what patterns I can come up with, what are my colors at the end of the day. And so I would say, my friends, and even I consider many people here just an extended family in Poland. They have definitely motivated me to continue composing, and just to also have some insight on what these past composers did themselves. Because even I think the downfall these days is, yes, classical musicians, we're notorious for just reading what's on the page.
Yeah,
and but we always have to remember that great composers like Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin himself,
Also,
they all improvised. And who are we to not improvise, and to be so rigid and just strict to the page itself. And I just told myself slowly, I didn't put huge pressure, but just delve into that a little bit. And
and which piece took your virginity away as an artist?
Oh boy, that's a gosh. There's so many pieces to choose from. I mean, in the world of Chopin, I mean, he wrote so much music, but I think I mean, of course, the nocturnes for sure. What I played a little bit earlier. But even, let's say, some iconic pieces like the Revolutionary Etude, which it's just the hand is just moving all over the place.
From left to right.
So when you see that, right, when you see somebody else doing that, you kind of go kind of gaga. It's like, oh my God, like this is just breathtaking.
And what's your favorite composition right now? Like, what's your favorite personal composition?
In terms of my own writing? So I had written a few short pieces a few years back, which I did record. But I would say, I mean, most recently with this project, Rzeka Chopina, the River of Chopin. I would say, from what I played earlier today, I have a personal favorite. And the opening being a favorite, but even the ending, which is a dedication to Chopin, which is a homage, as I call it.
Would you mind playing that?
Yes. And maybe I will just explain, if we have time, of course,
sure.
Just the inspiration behind this piece, because I'm happy to say, for many of my friends, even family here in Poland, they seem to love this one in particular, so that also warms my heart. But as I mentioned, the Revolutionary Etude, Chopin has this pattern. Right, this is like just fast, and I decided to just slow it down a lot, and make it just something very melodic, and just keep this pattern going. And so this homage to Chopin, this ended up being the product. And then it goes on, of course, like that. That is, of course, if anyone is interested, that can be found on Spotify. I'm happy to say that is recorded. But the idea was just to take that pattern, just and keep it going the entire time, while I find my own voice in the right hand.
Loops.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I really like I like the melody of that, man. It's so pristine. It's so nice. I really enjoyed it. It took me it made me the audience rather than the interviewer. And the final question is, it's two questions. First of all, is and it's a very corny question.
Okay.
What does music mean to you?
Oh gosh. I think there is no one answer to that, and I think that's what makes music at the end of the day. I mean, you really can't put words to it at the end of the day. It's a way of communication. It's the best way I could put it. Of course, there are people in this world who are very good with their words. Others have their voice somewhere else. Whatever their instrument is, whether they breathe through the instrument, whether they're singing, whether they're using their hands or feet for their matter, right? You talk about an organ as well, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just, for me, music is just a way to communicate human emotion. And in the most simple way, for me, that's what music is.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone could have said it better, because I think that it is a way to communicate to, like you say, some people are good with words, some with action.
Of course, yeah.
But music speaks to you, and there's actually this saying that the most loved celebrities are musicians, because music connects with people in a way that we will never have sufficient words to describe, which I think is the same, because we're in 2026, but you are in love with music from centuries before.
Yeah, from hundreds of years ago, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of music. And my last question is, if you go to, I probably know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. If you go to any musical era, because one thing I love is what I call moments in time where would be grateful to be. So, for example, my favorite moment in time as someone who loves sort of like the Beatles era, I would have loved being in the 60s, with the Beatles in England and also Motown in Houston, Texas. That would be my favorite era of music, because I loved the speed and the velocity of the music at that time. And for you, what would be your favorite era of music if you could time travel?
Well, it's good that you mentioned your favorite era, because I was thinking back, of course, during the Romantic period. But I guess I would choose two periods, to be honest. As a classical musician, of course, I would love to go back to the early 19th century.
Oh,
You know,
lovely.
when you know you have a group of composers. Of course, you have like late Beethoven,
Yeah.
the likes of Mendelssohn, Schubert, and Chopin at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and just to see what their lives were like, and to be in that society at that
space, yeah.
time. You know, of course, many of them spending time in Paris, but of course also in Vienna too. Vienna was
yeah.
this huge hub at the end of the day for
It was
composers.
the mecca of composers. at that time,
Exactly. And then, but as I mentioned earlier, I mean, I'm also heavily influenced by classic rock.
Classic rock,
and
yeah.
I would say a way for me to learn to loosen up even more,
yeah.
I would love to go back to the 80s.
Oh,
And, you know, see these big hair bands, right?
It's like the polar opposites.
Right, from Motley Crue to AC/DC.
See,
You know, I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan, so you know, from the '70s to the '80s, Queen, you know,
yeah.
Freddie Mercury. I mean,
yeah,
just iconic music at the end of the
another
day.
world. Yeah.
Just to also remind myself that, you know, we don't have to be so rigid even during even a classical concert, but just to really let loose a bit.
And actually, that actually brings me to another question I need to ask, which probably will be our final question. My favorite album ever is Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. So it's composed by Brian Wilson. And basically, he was experimenting with sounds, and how the album was made is to even bang chairs together.
Yeah.
And to see how much music they could make from chairs. So it was just very, very inventive. It actually made the Beatles reply with Rubber Soul. I think without Pet Sounds, there's no Rubber Soul.
I see.
So I think I've always said that I would have loved being a fly on the wall when Pet Sounds was being made, just of how like innovative it was. You know, like the beauty of creating something that you don't know where it's going, which I think for most classical music, you can tell that they did not know where they were going,
right?
But they knew they had to go,
right?
So for you, as a classical musician, which composition or which piece would you have loved to be a fly on the wall for?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's as a classical musician, I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer.
Or maybe I can narrow it down to Chopin, since why the Chopin solo.
Yeah, I think I would, in terms of his process of composing the etudes themselves, because he has a whole set, he has 2 books, 24 etudes in total. And Chopin was really the one who redefined what a concert etude was at the end of the day, because etudes, you know, translated to studies, was just meant to be an exercise. And so, you know, Chopin was a composer who understood the hand really better than any other composer. And so the way he composed and he wrote for the hand, I mean, he did it in just the most beautiful way. And so, you know, to see his process composing the etudes, which are known to be some of the hardest works to perform. But having said that, he understood what the arm needed to do, what the wrist needed to do, what the fingers needed to do. That would have been an amazing time to be there, to witness that.
Because that was probably the most precise piece ever, because he was basically studying the arm and the kinetics of playing the piano. Well, Vin, this has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've learned. I've gotten to listen to songs that I already listened to again, probably, which is amazing. Thank you so much for giving us up, for the invite, and for also giving us your valuable time as a composer, since you guys take hours and hours and hours to practice.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to communicate and present my own music and share a few of my own thoughts. Yeah, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is mutual. Thank you so much.